Out this evening with some student recognition.
The Board of Education would like to recognize the following third grade students representing the student leadership team at Mark Twain Elementary. The leadership team hosted a PJs Day where the kids would wear their PJs to school for $1 and teachers could purchase snacks for their classroom or buy their students extra recess. The team also went around to classrooms and read dog stories. Their efforts raised $563 for the Rolla Animal Shelter. The third grade leadership team also sold dessert at lunch and raised $700 for the St. James Veterans Home. So when I call your name, you can come up and we'll get you a certificate and we'll take a photograph with Mrs. Jameson. So first one on the list, Riley Anderson. Lola Drabzik. Not here. Grace Fontenot. Jean Kuljurgen.
Down.
And maybe Morgan.
Mr. Fridley, do you or anyone want to come down and talk about the leadership team a little bit?
Yes,
Or
Mrs. Dillon does, I believe. Mrs. Jackson.
Come on.
I'm just passing the buck
Yeah,
tonight.
that's good.
we need to center in
You can
on
you can all take
We
pictures.
also recognize Callie Luna. Her name
Yeah.
came in after I'd already submitted.
Oh, yeah.
So she can have Lola's certificate for right now, and then we'll make sure she gets a. So Callie.
Okay. Most happy to do that.
Parents, you can come around. You don't have to stand with me. Come over and take around and take pictures. Everybody centered on the bulldog. Don't forget, you guys need to come together and center around the bulldog.
Hey, we need to use them for take a stand this year. They did a pretty good job.
Scoot over. Who's your last? Scoot, Callie. Remind me about this.
So I'll just talk while they're taking pictures, if that's okay, and I'll
Yes, that'd
go a
be
little
great.
faster. So this is 5 of our 21.
You gotta go to the mic.
Oh, oh, I have to speak to the mic. Okay. This,
TV.
it's what? Oh, it's on TV. All right. This is 5 of our 21 student leadership kiddos. This is our 6th year to do student leadership at Mark Twain. And each year we try to pick a special project for the community. And this year we decided to do the Rolla Animal Shelter. And they did a great job of raising money. And the animal shelter came and picked up their money and said that they were going to build new dog houses for some of the dogs. So we were pretty excited. So thank you guys very much for recognizing them.
Good job, guys. I think you're up next.
MSBA, I'll take the next one. It's School Board Recognition Week, National Guidance Counselors Recognition Week too. So we're also celebrating from the 9th through the 15th. That'll be next week. National School Board Recognition Week, and we have a proclamation here from the governor from the state of Missouri, Mike Parson. But MSBA, Missouri School Board Association, celebrates the recognitions next week, and on behalf of our school district, representatives from Missouri State Teachers Association, MSTA, are here tonight, along with, I have some certificates to present to you as well when they're finished, to recognize our school board members for the hard work and dedication that they exhibit more than just twice a month for the betterment of the children of our school district. So I've always said, I think it's the highest calling of community service when you give back to the youth of a community. So Jill, you want to come down, and Cindy, come down and do you have gifts? Huh? No?
Down here would be accomplishment.
Oh.
All right, I'm Jill Blue. I'm the CTA president this year. And on behalf of our CTA, we would like to thank you for your service. And so we have left with you already there a certificate and a gift certificate to a slice of pie. So we appreciate all you do for our kids and thinking of them first and what you do for us as teachers. So thank you for your service and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll also have goodies next board meeting, which is the 20th, from culinary for you as well. So we're just going to celebrate. We're going to span the globe and expand the 9th to the 15th. So I have certificates to give you as well. Oh, they're at their place.
We have them.
We have them.
We thought we'd come around and take a picture with you, your certificates in place, and I'd like to take a picture with you too.
This one?
Yep. It's the one that I signed.
No, your name's not on. Your name's not on this. This one. His name's not on that way. Well, that says Jill Blue. You didn't sign it.
Pearl, you
Tell me what you want me to add.
how to have.
I know, I get I'm on the end.
Oh, you're the president. There we go. All right, Tony's not. All right, Tony's not paying.
Let's do it.
We have the governor's proclamation here. We'll put that away for safety.
Charlotte probably.
So I've signed so many certificates, I just thought I signed. I signed them in spirit. But thank you again.
All right, we'll move on to questions from the floor. At this time, any person wishing to speak on any question previously discussed through administrative channels and not on the agenda will be granted 5 minutes to make a presentation to the board. Please state your name for the record. And seeing none, we'll move on to presentation on agenda items. Any person wishing to speak on items on the agenda will be granted 5 minutes to make a presentation. Please state your name for the record. And seeing none. We'll move on to consent agenda. A consent agenda is utilized by the Rolla Board of Education as a means of dealing with routine matters which must be considered by the Board of Education but require a minimum of discussion. All Board of Education members receive and review written information supporting the items listed on the consent agenda well in advance of the meeting, while any Board of Education member is welcome to remove any item from the consent agenda for separate consideration or discussion for any reason. Normally, all items on the consent agenda are approved in one motion with a minimum of discussion. So I'm looking for a motion to approve items A through H.
I'll make the motion. We approve the consent agenda items A through H.
Thanks, Tony.
I'll second.
Thanks, Shannon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, we're on new business, our counseling program review.
Yeah, as part of our program evaluation of the guidance program, and also it's positioned at this time of year on purpose. It gives us an opportunity to say thank you to all of the counselors we have in the school district. We have a tremendous group. We're missing two tonight. Janelle Duncan from here at RTI-RTC, her son's got senior night tonight at Drury University. He's a basketball player there. And then Becky Snodgrass from junior high. I know she's helping with her father, I believe. So, but I know that their partners will fill in just fine. And Julie Peterman and Sarah Kalin lead the program. And we wish you the best as we celebrate National Counselors Week. And like you to give the board and the community an overview of the great things that you do to serve our children.
Okay. My name is Julie Peterman. I'm the counselor at Wyman Elementary. Some of you are new, you may not know me, but other of you probably know me way too well, but that's okay. Just be quiet. I know what you're thinking. So, every year, the school counselors like to come and present because we do a lot of wonderful things and we want to share that information with you. Sarah Kalin is going to help me present this, and she's at the high school. I'll let her introduce herself more when it's her turn to talk. I want to start out, my first slide is just a reminder of what the school, I've got the clicker, don't I? And it works, yay. What we do as in our program is we try to align our daily duties with the Missouri Comprehensive Guidance. Actually, guidance is now crossed out, just counseling program, because that has been proven to enhance, I should say, student academic performance, mental health for students and their social emotional development, their achievement, career development, create the safe learning environments, and help with collaboration with all of these stakeholders with our children. And then we do have accountability, and that's what we like to share with you tonight, is how we are accountable. Some of you may be aware, but Missouri actually, as a state for counseling, is pretty well known throughout the nation for its processes and how the program is run. And so we're lucky to have that in our state. It gives us a lot of opportunities to meet with some professionals that can help us to be better at our jobs too. But that's just a little bit of information about that. The other part of it is that we look at our program components are 4 general areas. The first is our curriculum. Those are the social emotional skills we teach our students. We even work on academic skills such as study skills and how to help them to be successful in the school environment. And then, of course, career development. At each stage of their age and grade, it varies on what the students need, but that is probably, for most of us, the biggest thing we try to work on. Now, a lot of times we share this duty with other teachers and staff because as we are finding, social emotional especially is becoming a growing concern in our environment and something we've obviously always believed in, but now we're finding it's more support from others as well. Then individual student planning is that where you're actually working more with the students on what they need to be successful. You will find more of that at the high school level, obviously getting ready for after college or after high school and college, but even at the elementary level, you start doing that kind of thing. Responsive services is the area that probably most people know counselors for. That's the day-to-day student is having a problem, needs help, and needs individual counseling. You need to do small group. A teacher calls and says, I need help now. You know, those kinds of things is what responsive services falls into. And of course, system support is what it actually takes to get our job done daily and how we support the school system. Because we're not a separate entity from the school system, obviously, we have to all work together. So the first thing, and I'm going to introduce our folks that are here as I go through this. This is our basic stat page of who is here. Nancy Cook is from Mark Twain, and she's going to do a little Vanna wave over there for us. And then she's at Mark Twain Elementary. You can see her stats up there. And then we have Rochelle Hauk from Truman Elementary. And then, as I mentioned, I'm from Wyman. And I'm going to let Sarah, let me introduce Mbala Middle School. I'm sorry. We have Erin Bartle and Jarena Fleshman, and they are at the middle school level. Now I'm going to let Sarah jump in and continue on.
All right, at the junior high, we have Jeremy Jameson and Becky Snodgrass. Then here at the high school, we have 4 counselors. We have Roger Bridgman, Liz Pogue, Monica Lyle, and myself. And we take care of that. And then at RTI and RTC, they have 1 counselor, and that is Janelle Duncan, and she does a great job over there. So every couple of years, we are asked by the state to do what's called an internal improvement review. So we go through all of the different standards that the state has set forth in those areas that Julie talked about, and we talk about we rate our performance. And we do that on two levels. We do that as a district. When we come together for a CSD day, we sit down and we evaluate K-12. What do we have going on? How's it working? And then also within our buildings, we each conduct an IIR, the counseling staff, in conjunction with our administrators to see how we're doing and how they think the counseling program is doing in terms of serving the needs of our students and staff. So from that, we have different sections. So the program foundation is a lot of things, and actually we've got IIRs. You guys can kind of see the one that we did at the district. So the program foundation is just the fundamental, the basic stats. You know, do you have a budget? Do you have counselors? What are your ratios? Those sort of things, and we give a rating on that. The system support are the things that we're doing behind the scene, like Julie said, the curriculum, the individual planning, the responsive services. And our complete IIR average score for percent of implementation was 94%, and we're quite pleased with that. We like that. Obviously, we're doing the absolute best we can for our kids on the daily basis. So this is our growth. In 2018, you can see the program foundation, we were rating at a 62%. So although that is our lowest in 2020, we've jumped quite considerably and put in some real work there, particularly in coming up with our our program manual. Sorry, I can think of the name of it for a second. So our program manual. So jumping from 62 to 83, we were pleased with that. Other major growth obviously came, well, we grew in every area, but also in the school counseling curriculum. We're making some real strides there as well. So out of the district IIR that we did, this is what we are going to hope to address this year. This was the one component on which we scored the lowest, and it says the program uses an evaluation plan based on the following indicators: counselor evaluation specific to school counselors. So that's part of our, and a growth plan that addresses that. That's part of what we are wanting to see across the district. Most of us, I would say, are evaluated on a teacher evaluation form. I know there is a counselor one out there somewhere, so our goal is to start having those conversations so that we can be evaluated. Because our job is so much different than a classroom teacher, we're wanting to be evaluated on what our program expects out of us, and I think that's going to be a relatively easy goal to achieve. The time task analysis. Julie's going to step back up here for a little bit of that.
So on the time task analysis, 3 weeks out of the year, so it's random data collection in some ways, but still planned, we tally what we do all day long to see where it fits into the 4 areas of curriculum, individual student planning, responsive services, and system support. That's our way of evaluating ourselves to make sure that we are following the program. And that's one of the things when she talks about changing the counselor evaluation, we'd like something like this to be part of our evaluation because we are already doing it, and it really shows if we're performing the services we should be performing. So each building does their own, and then we look at our data to see what we are actually doing on a daily basis. And we can see at Mark Twain, where Nancy is, that she does quite a bit of curriculum, and then we can see where her other areas fit in to her time. So then Nancy, when she did her internal improvement review, she decided that it showed that she wanted to target more of working with student needs in the small group setting. She felt like her responsive services could improve, and so she is going to come up with a way to collect data to figure out which students for sure need to get the data, to get the students in the program that need to be there, and then of course data to show if it's working or not for her. And so that's what she plans to do to improve her program in the next year. She's very proud of her collaborative team over there at Mark Twain. As she mentions, it takes a village to raise a child, and we are so lucky that we have all these individuals that we can work together, including the school resource officers, and we have the school-based counselors now through Compass Health, and so all of those, it's wonderful to have all those resources to help our kiddos. And then at Truman with Rochelle, you can see where hers is. Her biggest area is responsive services, and that's not surprising. We talked about that in our meeting. Many of us, responsive services is our big one. I compare it to an emergency room. And, you know, if a child comes to you and they're bleeding, you're going to go there first. You're not going to do the paperwork. You're not going to do, you know, you're not going to necessarily do the extra curriculum planning. You're going to go to that child first. And so the responsive services ends up to be an area that gets hit a lot, but we are seeing more children that are needing our one-on-one attention or some kind of group therapy to help them to be more successful. So Rochelle is really wanting to improve her advisory council at her level, and that includes, you know, like the Compass Health counselor, Dr. Welch. She would like to get a community member and a student, you know, to help her so that she can discover more of what Truman needs so that how she can help Truman and maybe get some more programs going in that regard. Her highlights for her is that she has a positive creative relationship with her principal and great communication, and she just feels like she's able to do many things to help Truman move forward, and they are working really hard to become a trauma-informed school, so that's something she's very proud of. And she's proud of her secretaries and everybody that makes it a warm environment. So as you can tell, counselors are not good at bragging about themselves. We brag about everybody else because that's just how we do things. Then in my building, responsive services is another high area too. I would like to see my curriculum a little bit more, but like I said, that's what happens whenever the kids are coming to you, and that's where you go first. My goal, because my responsive services is a higher area, I work with Compass Health. I even get interns from Missouri S&T, and I'm going to continue keeping those internships going because it is really wonderful. I have at least 3 other adults in the building this year that are helping me, not including the school-based counselor, and that is really helping so that more students are getting that one-on-one time, and it's nice to have other people come in that can either verify what you're thinking or to help you think a different way to maybe help these students. So I'm all for all the help I can get and help these kids. I'm proud of that we're working on our conscious discipline program even more, which is our social emotional learning curriculum. And this year, I'm working on what they call the time machine. It's not a real time machine, and even though the kids get really excited at first and then they're very disappointed until they figure out what it is, but that's okay. But it's a way to teach kids how to talk to one another when there is a conflict. So instead of going to the teacher or to the principal, they can have words and steps they take to solve the problem themselves. And I started with 3rd grade, and I was so excited when 3rd grade said, I want the time machine. And 2 guys who you never would expect went out in the hallway, took the time machine, and they solved their own problem. And it was wonderful because they're going to have to be adults that solve their own problems one day too. And our 3rd grade students have been helping teach the younger kids, and it's been a great to watch that happen and to see the leadership that even the 3rd graders can have. So very proud of that program. Then at the middle school, you can see that their responsive services, I know I keep harping on that, but that is our big one. We have a lot of kiddos with need, as you are aware. And at the middle school, they want to do some more with career exploration. They are hoping to find more readiness and avenues for their kids, the skills they need, and helping them find out what they want to do. I know it seems really early that we push it push it even at middle school, but as you know, by the time they get to high school, they're already getting into those programs of what they want to do. So middle school is not too early to be thinking about where their interests lie. And then they spend the majority of their time, as I said, with responsive services, meeting students' mental health and academic needs. And they do it individually, and they do a lot of small groups. They do a lot of great work at the middle school. Okay.
All right, so at the junior high, you can see, again, 51% of their time responsive services, individual planning, all of those different components. And to the right, you can also see what is recommended by the state for those different percentages. It does vary from elementary to middle school to high school, so there are different expectations. At the junior high, their goal is going to be to review their curriculum by researching the market for new or updated offerings, particularly in the areas of suicide prevention or career exploration, which is good. I want to keep current on both of those issues, of course. Their highlights, they continue to have a high level of constructive interaction. They've got a great team there, and they work well with students, whether their needs are social, emotional, or academic, or physical, whatever their needs are. The junior high counseling team is working hard to meet those needs. So at the high school, you can see we're at 52% of responsive services there. We have system support. We've got the curriculum, individual planning as well. I spoke with, there was a counselor here years ago. Her name was Nancy Helton, and she retired. And she stopped by to see me one day at home, and she said, "So are things pretty much the same?" And I thought, gosh, no. From 15 years ago when I started counseling to now, the amount of responsive service time that we are spending is quite significant. So whereas before it was a lot more individual planning, we really are, especially at the secondary level, seeing a huge increase there as well. So our improvement plan, we recently have acquired the Naviance program, which is going to be college and career exploration and career development, the ability to do some the ICAP, the Academic and Career Planning Tool, so we'll be implementing that a little more solidly. Some of the highlights that we have are, we started this year, actually started a little bit last year. This year it was really solidly in place that we have class meetings with each of the different grade levels, break it up over a week and get them through so that we can talk to them about things they should be doing. This year we also researched and created some reentry protocols for our students who are returning from particularly mental health hospitalizations, because we want to make sure that when they're coming back in, we know what to look for. At that point, they know what their triggers are. They can tell us what it looks like when they're in crisis or on the verge of crisis. And we also talk about who in the building they feel safe with, where we can go, and how we can best support them. We work with the parent, the student. The student gets to invite whichever teacher they would like, and we work together to make sure that that's a smooth transition back and that they feel well supported. We also have continued to improve the ability to utilize community resources. One of the big things for us has been the ability to text Grace when we need something. That has been fantastic, and we get immediate response. They're so good to us. The community is so supportive, and we do help kids in accessing all of those different things. You know, we have teenagers who move out of home, and they need help accessing some of these things. So we're there to support them in every way that we possibly can. At RTI and RTC, you'll notice that her responsive services sliver is really small, and that's because her students that aren't adult students, the adult students obviously she serves in a different way, but her 9 through 12 students are mostly having their responsive services needs met in their home school. So that's part of that. Then she's got a lot of curriculum working and individual planning as well. She would like to develop a monthly calendar so that it can be shared, so that everyone can know where she's working and what she's working on. The highlights, she's worked hard this year with embedded credit, trying to get that solidly in place, to implement student portfolios for the seniors, to organize their career documents and help them be better prepared for the workplace, which is wonderful. They're also working to develop a new 1-hour work-based course titled Cooperative Career Education. So we'll look forward to how that can serve our students in the future. So here we have some school counseling links that we throw in there in case you ever want to know more. I know we talk long enough, but in case you ever want to know more, there's where you can go to get some of that additional information. All right, and then we are here to National School Counseling Week. We want to thank you for all that you do to support school counseling. We are not people, but a program, and we are very excited and enthusiastic about how we can implement the counseling program to best meet the needs of our kids and our community. And then we just wanted to say congratulations next week. We thank you guys for all that you do, not in just supporting us, but students in the future. And we've got some goodie bags for you in that honor.
We want to get a composite picture of you all down here in front of the Bulldog too. So
okay,
we'll get that to our communications person, Gina. And
do we have any questions? All right. Yeah.
I do have just one question, actually for Julie. On your internship with Missouri S&T, do you get quite a few students that...
I get a student every spring, pretty much anymore, from their psychology department. And they're coming in and working with students and finding out more about it, but I do get one about every year. And
every year.
I had one that she came so much she volunteered then the next year, and now she's becoming a counselor, and she's back in the system again, practicing, doing manufacturing work that way. So
now, does Missouri S&T, do they give them credit for this internship, or?
They get credit.
Okay.
She gets course credit for it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, she gets course credit.
Okay. And is there any other schools that would be interested in wanting to?
I think sometimes they go to high school if they have we have a relationship with them, if they have students that
I've had one before in my office.
as well.
And if
Oh,
they're
wow,
showing
great.
interest in it, then they go in that level, depending on what level they're interested.
Keeps bringing me.
Sounds like a wonderful
It
collaboration.
is, I enjoy that a lot.
Keeps giving it.
Kind of keeps me young to visit with those college students and,
Yeah.
and
It's
you know,
self-care.
We have one for Mr. Council.
Yeah.
Hey, those are great.
feels like.
Hey, I've got a quick question. So you guys mentioned more and more of your resources are being directed towards responsive time. You think that's because there's more problems or there's better awareness now? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of both. I feel like it is a little bit, that we're seeing it more, but I do agree that part of it is that there's a lot more awareness out there, and it's becoming less stigmatized. So, for example, we have a lot of students who will come in, and it may not be for themselves. They may come in and say, hey, I think my friend's depressed. Hey, my friend's got this issue going on, and helping us. And parents are great, too, to kind of keep us in the loop for issues that their students are dealing with mental health-wise so that we can help support them in the school as well. So.
I know some,
I was gonna say, we're also seeing some family changes too, because we see a lot more grandparents who are raising children. That brings some new challenges for them.
I'll just,
No, you go ahead, I'm sorry.
I know some of you have some groups. I just kind of wondered what all groups are out there for our different levels. Group counseling.
At the high school, unfortunately, we only have a grief group going at this time. We would like to be able to expand that. We just don't have the time at this point. I know at the junior high, you guys have.
Got a large group.
At the middle school, we have a very large grief group. We pass to the junior high and high school. I also do a incarcerated group with Camp David curriculum. And then I have 2 separate social skills groups. And sometimes I'll do a group for kiddos who, if the need presents itself, who have parents that are divorced.
And I'm doing an anger management group, and one of my interns is actually doing for children with attention deficit issues, that helping them control those and come up with skills for those as well. And then friendship, in my level, they're called friendships groups. They're basically social skills, but it's teaching them how to get along with other children, that kind of thing. So
Becky Whitesacker comes in from
the partnership.
the partnership, and she does friendship circles at the middle school as well. Prevention consultants, we're utilizing them a lot as well in our schools to help with some curriculum.
Have you reached out to Compass Health? I know they also have educational offerings.
Yes,
too.
and we work with our school-based mental health specialists. Our school-based therapists are really good to help us access those and keep us in the loop with what they're doing. There is some interest in them helping to maybe facilitate some groups with us as a part of their job there. So we're working towards that as well. Also, on that note, I'll tell you that at the high school, we started with a school-based therapist 1 day a week, and our need grew so rapidly that we're piecemealed together. We have 3 different school-based therapists that are coming in, but we're up to 5 days worth of full caseload for those people. So I'm so thankful that we have that to access for our kids, especially those that have transportation issues. So that's great.
And your students are actually asking for it on their own.
Oh,
Which is
absolutely.
even more wonderful because they're realizing, and like you say, the stigmatism is going away, and they're seeking that help themselves, and that's just wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. All right, thank you guys very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Julie's anger management group's particularly comforting to know this winter when we're dealing with the National Weather Service that you're just one phone call away.
We meet on Thursday and Friday at 2 o'clock. You are welcome to join us.
Unless school's not.
Unless school's not, well, that has been a problem.
We're gonna pick people to go see.
Okay, yeah, bring them down, bring them
Schools
down.
get together and the elementaries get together, they can.
You know, it's good. Do it together like you like it.
I'll die.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to get a lot closer.
We don't want to,
Turn your shoulder.
Pretend it's one of those social.
are they centered?
I'm getting ready to take it, so you better have your best foot forward. Not literally. Okay?
Thank you, guys.
Okay, if you'll look at number 5B, our future dates. Next meeting will be the 20th, and I believe, Carl, you said you wouldn't be here on the 20th. And then we also have the March 5th and March 19th. And we'll move into old business. R31, 2020. Just rolls off the tongue.
I'll be a little older next time.
2020. That's what the weather says.
One of the tenets of communication is you say things until you're tired of saying it, and then you keep saying it. So this is the, third time? This presentation changes a little bit, but every month, every meeting, we'll have this before you with its subtle changes. Dr. Dare and I have done, I think there were 4 or 5 on Tuesday alone, starting in the morning with our admin team and ending at the Truman PTO. So we're starting to work through that. I think I mentioned at the last meeting that we have everyone identified for the campaign committee, and Jeannie Cavender is the chair of that, and Molly Malone is the treasurer. So that kickoff meeting will happen during this month, and we'll start to pick up the momentum. But just as a reminder, when we were talking through with people about our strategic plan and how this process unfolded from the district's strategic plan and those 2 specific areas, the 5 projects, as we've been working through those. We don't have updated drawings of Truman, but I will make mention of, I'll have Dr. Dare maybe help me with some of that as well. We're kind of finding our way as, I think I can be the color man and you can take the lead on some of these at some point in time, just so. Well, I blew a vocal cord on Sunday during the Chiefs game, and now after 4 or 5 presentations on Tuesday, finding myself feeling a little hoarse. Safety and security, these are the 3 major components of that, and from that, there are specific projects that we'll do within those. And I'll let Dr. Dare speak a little bit to the matrix here because it's a little bit difficult to see, but more importantly, what it means in those 3 areas.
Well, so, and part of the presentation that we've been trying to include in that is safety and security is a part of everything we do. It's not new. It's not anything that we don't think about on a daily basis. So these are things that are beyond our ability to do on a normal operating budget and time frame. And so stressing to everyone that this will touch every building and address entry access and visitor management is kind of what we're terming that. And really what we're talking about there is just controlling who's coming in and out of the building and when, and knowing who's in the building when they're there. And that's all important. So really nothing that you all haven't heard before, but that's really our stress, is that this is in addition to and to ongoing things that we're doing every day. This is just an expansion of that, so we can get it done quicker.
Our experiences, since we've been doing these presentations, the questions that are coming from people relative to safety do fit in those areas. And obviously there's some things we can't tell them we do relative to safety, but I think they take comfort in knowing that we're weaving it in all the building designs too. It's just not this as a standalone effort. And the amount of money projected for this is right at $1 million, just in addition to the things that we would normally do. So what Dr. Dare was speaking to are some of the specific advantages and how we would implement from these 4 quadrants. As far as the high school goes, of course, this continues to evolve, not so much as some of the others will, but just talking people through a gymnasium that seats 2,000 people. One of the questions I got this week was, will there be a track around the top of it? And I said, well, that takes us pretty deep into design development. Conceptually speaking, we're looking at a gym that seats 2,000, and a frame of reference is our current gym seats 1,000. And then the auditorium, orienting people to orienting people to the fact that that's our gymnasium currently. And we had a couple timeline questions. One this week I thought was pretty good. So course, this is prior to us, what we're stressing to people to illustrate how these things evolve. This first drawing was prior to us acquiring the Blossom Basket property at the corner of 10th and Cedar and what that does for the project potential. The second thing that we talk about is the size of and the scale of the project, particularly with the band and vocal music classrooms. Dr. Dare, you want to speak to some scale?
Well, so most everyone's familiar with the practice gym, and so this is a scale drawing. So as you're looking at that practice gym and comparing it to the band and choir rooms, you'll see that those are roughly half the size of the gym each. And so as we're talking about the need for the additional space for those programs, that was truly our original goal, was to make sure that they had the space that was needed. And so there are still refinements to come on that, but I think we're on the right track to making sure we address that need.
The other thing I would say is people ask us, they say how's safety woven into this? Well, one of these structures, one of the parts of the structure, either the gym or the commons area will have to be safe room. They have to be FEMA storm shelter to those specs. So, you know, that's what the primary example of how we're weaving safety into the project is more than just active shooter training or fire. It's storm and everything else that goes with that. I know this one's really popular, but I happened to be talking with Mark about something yesterday, in addition to Dr. Dare. It wasn't even related to this project, but somehow it came up that the more and more he looks at this, the more and more it's a challenge. And Dr. Derek will speak to why it's a challenge. And then somebody, I think it was at the Truman PTO, said there would be nothing better than to have a 10-foot retaining wall right on 10th Street. So you want to speak to?
Yeah, so there's from Cedar Street, which in this image would be at the bottom of the screen, back toward the existing gym, there is quite a bit of a fall, an elevation change there. And so in this design and the other design, one of the things that Mark is trying to accomplish there is dealing with those elevation changes. And that does, of course, impact the design. It's very difficult to see in this drawing, but on the 10th Street and Cedar Street side, to deal with those elevations and keep things where they would need to be, this gym floor would actually have to be sunken in, for lack of a better word, but below grade. And so it would make the retaining wall that would have to go on 10th Street quite tall, you know, possibly up in the 15 to 20 foot range. And that would just be basically a sheer drop off from the street. And also create some strange alleyways and some different things. So we're still massaging this. We're still exploring both designs, but that is a concern that we need to be aware of going forward.
Of course, for the Truman staff, we rewound this about 4 times. It depends on where we're playing it. It slows down. Here, it plays faster than anywhere else we ever play it. So when people see it, the conversion of the gymnasium to an auditorium, they're quite taken aback by it, because it's one thing to see it in 2 dimensions in blue and another to see it in 3 dimensions. And then the questions come from any range from ADA compatible to which we have space built in for that, but so we just play it twice, and just so people can really take it in and understand that they start to orient themselves at what the potential is for that space. And then we share with them too that St. James is actually doing the same thing with their old gymnasium, converting it to an auditorium, but that we had the idea first. It's important to we make sure, let the record show that it was our idea. They just stole it and took off with it faster. But we're happy for them, because I think it accomplishes the same thing, and for their performing arts, and their teachers and students are very excited, community as well. So 825 seats or so. We had a couple questions about its comparison to Leach Theater, and you know, why would we not use Leach Theater? We explained that busing our kids back and forth for class, if we were doing a performance, it's just not conducive to. And plus, a building of 1,300 kids, we would use it for more than just our students and our performances. The community would be able to use it as well. So Looking at the junior high school, of course, we talk about the stress we placed at that building when we moved the 7th graders to the junior high, particularly in band and vocal music. Here, we've also had the request through the planning process for some kind of flex PE weight room space. So we've obviously have talked with a lot of our AD, Mark Caballero, and some of the head coaches that would utilize that space as being a part of our effort here. So what's in blue is an alternate, something we could probably accomplish on our own, but we need the other space in order to vacate that to make it happen. And so, Dr. Darrell, I don't know if you had anything more you wanted to add to the yellow.
No, I might just mention elevation there is not as big of a problem, but it also affects that. And then also the calculations that we have to use for the safe room. You know, we talk a lot about the additional band and vocal music room there, but there's potential to gain a classroom or two in that as well as part of that to get the square footage that we'll need for the safe room piece.
Of course, at Truman, there are no doors or windows in this, and we addressed that with the Truman group before they had a chance to notice there were no doors and windows in there, and because it is also part of the safe room. But another variation on that theme, Dr. Derry, you might talk about, because we're waiting on some drawings that are in process right now.
Right, yeah, there's a couple of options coming, and one of the things we talked about, that current drawing shows the entrance that goes in toward the actually behind the office there, but just outside the cafeteria there is actually what you might call the main lobby entrance, and probably the one that they use the most at the start of the school day. There's potential that, you know, that space that's designated as the library would shift to the what would be the left in that drawing of that entryway, and the administrative offices coming up to that point, so that would become the central entrance with the controlling aspects for security and safety through the office. It may even elongate out the other direction. Those are just really placeholders at this point to kind of show the concept, but we are working on a little more detailed thoughts with that.
Yeah, people ask us, don't take our parking. We're not taking anybody's parking, you know, just as Dr. Dare said, just taking that box and turning it so it's more horizontal than vertical and adding the other spaces. You'll kind of see that. We told Mark we don't care if it's as rough as the first drawing we did at the high school, just that we did during the fall, just dreaming of having that corner property to be able to have as part of our project. So it's just to show that these things are ever evolving. But it's fun to listen to when people start to absorb what it is that we're talking about doing, and then their ideas start flowing. They go real intricate, way ahead of where we were thinking. But those are good conversations to have. It shows that they're paying attention. And the bright blue area, you know, is the existing office that we would convert to classroom space. And without fail, most people understand the library at Truman is in need of being somewhere else, and that needs to be a different kind of space. And we're talking to the Wyman staff on Tuesday after school, and they certainly acknowledge that. They were the recipients of a new library as part of their construction project. So they get it, and that's nice to see. I mean, that they understand the layout of this building and its challenges. RTI, these are the things that we've enumerated that we would do, and I won't read those to you, but you know, we'll show them visually. There's more things that we don't necessarily see, except for the restrooms. And what people don't understand, what the restrooms are in blue here is they're not ADA compliant. We also share with folks that we've moved the robotics program over here, and some of the other things we've talked about with ag, with replacing the greenhouse. And Dr. Derry, you want to chime in on anything else that I may be missing?
I might just mention on most of those items, it's beyond renovation of paint and surface level. We're really to the point of needing to get in and kind of gut those spaces down and replace plumbing and, as Dr. Zalis likes to tell everyone, the bowels of the building, literally. But it is
I wasn't going to say that this time. You hang out around each other long enough, you start. That's good. Finishing each other's sentences. Okay, very good. So that's the space there, and a lot of exciting things that can happen at RTI, but again, the restroom capabilities, we talked a lot about when this building was built in the 70s, or the negative connotation about vocational school has changed to career tech, and we've got more girls taking classes here than we ever had before, and the restroom facilities just aren't, they look nice. Our maintenance department has done yeoman's work there, but we need just a clean slate. The cost of the project, $25 million out of a bond issue. It's 58.5 cents on the debt service levy. We've been explaining to people that a bond issue is kind of like taking out a mortgage on your house, and in our case, it's financing a project similar to finishing your basement in your house. It increases the value and the utilization of your home, and you go to borrow the money for it, and you got to pay it back over a 20-year period. And this debt service part of our levy goes to do that, and the cost of doing that is 28.5 cents. The total cost of the projects are just north of 31 million, which means that 6 million will come out of Fund 4, which is our capital projects fund, and that's planned on purpose so that our patrons are not bearing the brunt of the entire tax burden on that. We're trying to help offset that. We've done that with several projects, and the cost of the homeowners at these increments, if your house is worth more than $200,000, then obviously you'll pay a little more on this project, and if it's less than $125,000, it'll be less than that. And then again, on a monthly basis, it's a tax increase. We make no bones about that. We respect people, and hopefully they'll remember that we're good stewards of the taxpayer dollar and take everything serious here. And this is based on a long-range plan. What it does to our our levy is push it to about 14 out of the school comparisons that you see there, and that's with no one else doing anything. I would tell you that there's going to be several bond issues in the state. There were several last spring for projects, and so feel good about this in terms of where it takes us. And what I did add, this is our comparison of tax rates, and what I did add is where we rank on that same data set. Now, the only difference is on this one is that the Newburgh School District and St. James are in this because they are in Phelps County. When it comes to the CAMDENTON survey with teacher salaries, they're not included in that. They're not large enough school districts. These are the larger districts that you see there. So the comparison takes the random places on the salary schedule. So the BS would be the bachelor's degree. First step would be the first step on the salary schedule for a beginning teacher. While our rank is the lowest of all of them there, it's because we're not far out of contention. It can be anywhere between $80 and $300 would put us in another ranking. The rest of those are randomly selected masters plus years of experience, where their step would be on the schedule, salary schedule. You go horizontally for degrees earned, and you go vertically for years of experience. And the places, what this tells you is that when people come to us, we attract and retain people to come, and if they come and stay, our salaries are very competitive. So I'd like to talk about this, particularly now, because teacher salaries are getting a lot of attention when compared to the tax rate. So for the lowest amount of money, we invest the lion's share of it in our teachers, which is what our community said is the most important thing that we have. So none of these projects come to our community to the detriment of something else, particularly the thing that's most important, and that's the teacher in the classroom. This is another graphical look at our levy in the debt service fund compared to the other districts, just some off the CAMDENTON group and locally. Speaking of our debt, it kind of lays it out here for you. We don't have a lot of debt as a school district. The state statutory amount is 15% of our assessed value, and our assessed value is north of $400 million. So, we're at 3%, which is good. You see what our debt ceiling is, our debt service limit and capacity. We will pay off some issues in the coming years. I've refinanced previous issues to save the community a lot of money. And the reason why we have a good rating are those things that you see there, which is actually very low debt burden. But everything that makes this community great, the university, the progressive community on education, and the fact that our fiscal management of funds is very strong, and our fund balance and the reserves are strong, which tells someone that would buy our bonds that we're a good risk to take, and that's why we rate it as a AA minus. The actual ballot language, we pointed out to folks that this is what we're going to do. I mean, what we say we're going to do, we're going to do. There's nothing else there left to guess, and we'd hope that they would vote yes. I moved the arrow about a quarter of an inch to the right because the committee's formed and we're on our way. I did change the last box. We had a question about timeline and on construction, and I'll let Dr. Dare speak to that a little bit, just because we were both kind of feeling that question and talked about it a little bit today. So.
Well, we kind of think in planning terms of a year of planning and a year of construction. But looking at that high school project specifically, there's going to have to be some phases. The new gym field house would have to be completed before we can abandon the other one to do the theater project. And so realistically, we felt like we needed to push that date out a little ways.
Yep. So I just gave you guys 2 years to get it done, so, or more than 2 years. So sometime in 2023, but sometime between 21 and 23. We can change that again, but that makes sense. Most people hear that. So happy to answer any questions or field any comments you're hearing from people. I think a lot of people are starting to get the idea of what's going on and don't know what you're hearing, or if anything you'd like us to add to this based on feedback from people you encounter.
So one question that I did get from the community was about the athletics department. Would we actually move them into the new gym area? Because then it would be a lot easier if you're going in to get an athletic, pass. And
So that question came up at a couple of our presentations to you. And honestly, our answer has been, we haven't got to that level yet, but it's certainly something to keep in mind as we look toward that design stage, hopefully after it passes.
It makes a lot of sense. So the administration is positioned in the way it is in the building. His Cabby's office is where it's at because that's where it's always been, but it does give an administrative presence in that area too. So we think about where we position administration throughout that building, not having too many people in one location, but it does make a lot of sense just for accessibility. And yeah, it's ironic that it came up. It's one of those things that when we hear it, we mark it down and get ready to address it. So thank you. That's good. Anything else?
I was just going to comment, once I did see the presentation that you saw, I reviewed Kyle's quadrant sheet on the safety measures, and it really has a lot of good information that can be easily understood by anybody who wants to look and see what does access control mean.
Yeah,
control.
Yeah, that's good. We were talking about actually taking each one of those quadrants and making them a separate sheet, and we can make them a slide. But Gina is working on single sheet handouts, flyers that are simple to see one on each side and for different parts of the project. So that's one of the things that.
And there's a few in each of that, which are major points that you can highlight, but that's really good.
We'll do that.
And then a comment on renovating, like at RTI. It's best to do it all at once. So if you have plumbing issues, electrical issues, HVAC issues, get it done. It's a lot less expensive, and you can mark it off your list.
Right.
We were able to do that at the university at the Strauman's Hall. We did everything that had to be done.
Well, we did have one question, and specifically about the plumbing, and to that same point. And sometimes, if you've ever done even plumbing repairs in your home, sometimes you can repair things and it causes issues other places. So it is good to address it all at one time. Yes, sir.
And then I don't know if you want to expand a little bit about what you have the architect doing at the moment. He has a kind of a lull opportunity, and he's
sure.
He's
So
trying to revise some concepts.
a couple of things that we've asked him to work on in the short term. First and foremost was the drawings for Truman. Just trying to get a little better idea of what that could look like potentially. He is also Dr. Zalas, I don't know if he even knows this, but he's trying to work on that video for us just a little bit. We had him speed that up for the survey because of the size, but trying to slow that down and maybe add some captioning and some things to that to help people understand what they're looking at and where. And then further refinement and exploration of those elevation questions at the junior high and the high school. Those are the things that he's most involved in at this point.
Do you talk at your presentations about, things that we're going to try to do for like the auditorium, increase the size of the stage and try to compare that to the stages that people might be aware of here in town?
Yeah, and we have tried to point out to them that, we're within a foot of the same stage size at Leach. We're, 220 some seats over that, because that is a good relation. People kind of have a feel for what that looks like. So we've tried to talk through those things and give them those comparison numbers for what we currently have. We have a little over 300 seats in our current auditorium at the middle school, so, substantial improvement there.
Yeah, that was a question we were asked. I don't remember where it was. What's the size? How many does the middle school auditorium seat? And then we say this one seats 825, and they get an idea. That's more like it for a school that size. Yeah. And the gymnasium. The question: the current gymnasium was built for the school when the population of the high school was 500 or so, and we haven't had 500 kids in that high school for I don't know how long. So when they hear 2,000 seat gymnasium, they kind of understand that. And then the next question was, are we going to be able to have graduation there? That was the common one. We said, well, the Bowman seats a lot more than the gym we're talking about building, and there isn't a need for the high school to build a gymnasium of 6,000, 5,000 capacity, so that's too much.
Thank you.
Keep them coming. We're getting better as we go. But to you, that's what you've already heard it 3 times, and bless your hearts, by the time we get to April, you're gonna.
We'll be able to give it.
Well, you'll be able to go out and tell people, and maybe Julie do it too.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Pearl, what would you like to update us on activities in the district?
Okay, so first at Rolla High School, the Hall of Fame induction and banquet will be held this Saturday at the Rolla Junior High cafeteria. Dr. Pritchett has asked me to let you all know that all of the board is invited, and if you're interested, just get in contact with him for tickets, and the event begins at 6 o'clock. Today at the high school, the second core luncheon was held and prepared by Phelps County Bank. And at Mark Twain, they are hosting the blood drive for faculty, parents, and community members on February 19th. Over at Truman Elementary, their PTO meeting was held last Tuesday. The first grade of Truman also has a science exploration night and read-in coming up next week. At Wyman, their PTO meeting is occurring this Tuesday evening, and a conscious discipline parent meeting is to be held next Thursday. At the Rolla Junior High, a Valentine's Dance is planned for next Thursday. They'll also be hosting a chess tournament a week from this Saturday. And finally, the last announcement that I have for you today is that at RHS, the courtrooming dance is this Saturday.
Good. Everybody's looking forward to that, I'm sure. Very good, thank you. You have another slide you want to share with us, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably appropriate to do a calendar update. And we'll get some information out to staff and the parents and the community. Try to put something together. If you're like me, I like to see visually. We've talked about all the numbers that go into a calendar for some time. So what you see there is on the left, we have a statute change that occurred last year. We have another statute change that's impacting the calendar you approved for next year as well. But this is what we're living under currently. So the calendar, the yellow box on the left is the state minimum calendar hours, which is 1,044 hours. And if you have implemented a state minimum calendar with 1,044 hours, then you need to build in 36 hours of makeup time. So that's the minimum. And there are many school districts that do the minimum. Our calendar is the box that's on the right, and it represents 1,136 and a half hours. And built into that is 6 makeup days. So Martin Luther King was our first makeup day. Our next makeup day is President's Day. And then there are 4 days built into the end and in school on May 21st. So with the calendar as it is exceeding the state minimums, and we built in snow makeup days, if you look at that, we really didn't even have to build in snow makeup days, but we did, because we've talked about how this district spends much more time than the minimum on our students, and we like to think that our student performance is much better than the minimum because of that in many ways. So with that, our school ending date is still scheduled to be the 21st. The second question is, what about spring break? We are not planning to, I have never, you guys can do that after I'm messed with spring break, because we're aligned with the university, and it's just not wise to do. So those two things are embedded in the calendar as staples. So the numbers that are along the arrows represent how many snow days it would take us to get from where we are to the state minimum. Now, I also told you over the last 10 years we've used an average of 3 days. So far we've used 7. Last one was the 7th. So that 1136 and a half is now 1129 and a half. But we're still 12 days away from the state minimum. So I'm not advocating any change to the calendar. I'm hopeful that if we get 1 or 2 more days by the old statute, we wouldn't be required to make up every one of those anyway. And not to confuse people. So the calendar is what it is, and May 21st is the last day. That makes up 6 of the days that we said we were going to make up, and it pushes us far out, and that's why that's there. But people need to get out of the mindset of a day and need to think of it as an hour, because there is no more days-based calendar. We use it just for discussion purposes with the calendar committee, but there's where we are right now. So we'll talk about this with the we've talked about it with the principals, and we'll get something out in some form to get to all the parents and students. But that's really the only 2 questions they have. When's school out, and is spring break still intact?
Exactly.
Yes, and yes. And we're still in good shape. I can't believe we'd have 12 snow days, but more. But this has been an odd year. Last year, we get bitter cold and wind and craziness, and now it's forecast, and National Weather Service has whiffed a couple times, but today we drove today, and there were some slick spots, but I think everybody's ready to be back at school. Pearl, would you say that? You ready to get back to school? Don't say you don't care. If you don't say yes right away, I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Words are no comment.
I was telling the story to one of the staff. We had a mom that would call up here. She would call periodically, and nice enough lady, but she finally, after I think it was 2011, we had 10 snow days. And she said, Dr. Zales, there has to be something up there that my kids can do for you. Clean toilets, paint windowsills. You have got to get these kids out of this house. So the novelty of a snow day changes, about this time, that people are tired of it, and we certainly are too. So happy to answer any questions, but that's my shot at trying to explain it.
I know I had a couple of those questions today, so I was glad to have that added in there. Anybody want to comment on any school visits lately or anything like that? I will mention we have an election coming up, April 7th. We have 3 positions and 4 candidates. Carla Clayton, one of our candidates, Tony Froelich, Sue Udaly, and Mark Sells, who's out in the audience. Hello. April the 7th.
I was at the middle school on Friday for the twice delayed competition in the Quest classroom, the skate park. Yeah, their designs and presentations. So it was a lot of fun for a couple hours. Yep.
Okay. Looks like that is everything. There's some monitoring reports. We do have the MSBA Legislative Day on Monday. I think there's a couple of us going up to that. Dates for future meetings. Do I have a motion? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say if you were going to introduce Julie since he was here.
Oh. Well, you got to come down here so they can see you.
Uniform, you realize.
Yeah, we're glad to have you.
8 years now on television.
That's right. That's right. You can step there at the podium if you'd like. You'd be on television there, too.
We didn't tell you that part till after you accepted the contract.
Yeah. Right.
This is Dr.
Hello to
Julie
everyone.
Williams. Welcome.
Thank you. I feel very pleased to be here. It's kind of, well, it is a great blessing to my life to spend the end of my career with Kyle and Craig, and I hope to stay the long haul with both of them.
Very good.
And so it's a pleasure. I was energized to see your new theater, being a vocalist, and so it's something people only dream of. But I'm excited to be a bulldog. Thank you.
Glad to have you. Thanks for coming to the meeting. Appreciate that. Anything else? Checking. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Shannon.
I'll second.
Thanks, Carla. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.